The third and final notation that we'll speak about today is set notation, and it uses braces to define it. These braces are these fancy little symbols right here, and let me give you a tip on how to draw those before I have you pause the video. So if you think about it as a forwards S followed by a backwards S, you can draw perfect little braces. So again, if you want to draw the other one, backwards S first and then forward S. So with that tip in mind, go ahead and pause the video and write these notes so that we can talk about them. Okay, welcome back. So set notation can be used in several different instances. We can use it to define discrete graphs. And so discrete graphs are just sets of numbers in a list. There's just a few of them usually, and so it's manageable to write them out as individual numbers. So an example of that would maybe be solutions to a system of equations or a polynomial. And so 4, 8, 11, and 16 are the numbers in my set. We can also use set notation for continuous graphs. And to do that, we use what we call set builder notation. So we define a variable, usually x, but sometimes y or something else, and then we start out with real numbers and describe restrictions to build the set. So set builder notation has these fancy braces, but you'll notice that the middle of it looks a little bit or exactly like our inequality notation. So the way that you would read this, the x in this case, x right here in the braces means the set of all real numbers x. So just by writing x in that fancy brace, we get to say all of those words. The next thing is this little line, and this line is the same as saying or writing such that. And then finally, we have our inequality notation. X is greater than 4. X is greater than 4. So this symbolism right here means all of those words, so it's definitely a good shorthand method. Let's continue looking at the same examples we've looked at before. And so our first example, if you recall, was -4 as a critical point and 7 as our other critical point. X is in between -4 and 7. I told you that this is very similar to our inequality notation, but we start with our brace. All real numbers x such that, and then write our inequality notation that we did above, -4 less than x less than 7. If you want to, take a peek up above, and sure enough, here is what we wrote as our inequality notation. So it's kind of just a fancy way of doing inequality notation, or that's one way of looking at it. We'll look at some other uses of set notation in the next video, or 2 videos. Here is our second example that we looked at. We had -1 as a single critical point, and from there we had an included -1, and x was going to the left for less than. So again, start with the fancy brace. X is the set of all real numbers x such that x is less than or equal to -1. And so fancy way of writing inequality notation, but it does have some other uses that we'll look at later in the lesson.